Hello, and welcome back to Breakthrough. I'm glad you're here as we keep moving through breaking the cycle of almost. If you've been following along, you know what this is. If you're new, do yourself a favor and don't start in the middle. Pause this and go back to episode 1. The story is meant to build, and it hits different when you walk it in order. All right. Take a breath. Let's step into today's episode. If this were only my story, it might be interesting. It might even be moving. What gives it weight, though, is not that it happened to me, is that it happens to so many of us in different shapes and seasons. You may never have been carried from house to house, but you may know what it means to live one heartbeat away from disappointment. You may know how it feels to brace yourself emotionally, to hold relationships far enough away that losing them won't completely destroy you. Some wounds don't need identical details to produce identical scars. Your almost might not have involved foster care or adoption paperwork. Your almost might have lived inside a home full of people where you still felt strangely unseen. Maybe you performed your way into affection. Maybe you learned early that love comes easier when you're useful, impressive, obedient, or needed. Maybe almost love didn't look like abandonment. Maybe it looked like conditional acceptance. Maybe it sounded like approval that never quite turned into affirmation, like being tolerated when you were convenient and corrected when you were human. If any of that resonates, you already understand something without needing it explained. You can live decades past childhood and still feel 10 years old inside when someone doesn't stay. A delayed reply can feel like rejection. A canceled plan can feel like being chosen last. A small conflict can feel like threat. The adult in you may know better. The child in you remembers patterns. That isn't immaturity. It isn't weakness. It's residue. Early fractures echoing forward, looking for confirmation. One of the cruelest lies we believe is that surviving means we must be fine. We assume healing happens automatically with age. We assume time is medicine. Time is only space. What fills that space determines whether we heal, harden, numb, or quietly collapse inside while our exterior life looks functional and admirable. You can build a respectable life on top of unaddressed pain and call it stability. You can even call it success. If the foundation is still cracked, though, the building keeps rattling whenever the weather changes. So let me say this gently and clearly. If your early life taught you not to trust love, God is not offended by your caution. He is not impatient with your hesitation. He is not embarrassed by your triggers. He understands that wounds don't disappear because we become adults who know better. He understands that faith doesn't erase biology, trauma, or nervous systems trained to brace before we ever learned how to pray. At the same time, he refuses to leave you there. That refusal is not a threat. It is kindness so fierce it can feel unfamiliar. The breaker does not barge through your heart with violence. He moves with intention. He works in layers. He doesn't start with, get over it. He starts with, I saw it. He doesn't demand instant trust. He proves himself trustworthy. He doesn't belittle the child in you that still aches. He sits beside the child and refuses to let him or her believe abandonment is identity. Maybe the most faithful thing you can do right now is not chase a massive spiritual moment. Maybe the bravest thing is telling the truth about where you are. That truth might sound like admitting you are tired of living emotionally half-packed. It might sound like recognizing that almost love shaped how you show up in friendships, marriage, parenting, community, even faith. It might sound like realizing what you labeled personality is actually protection. It might sound like naming the cycle. You reach, you retreat. You hope, you brace. You tell yourself you're fine, and you quietly wonder why you always feel one step away from losing the thing you are trying to keep. None of that means you are broken beyond repair. It means you have lived. Living in a world where love sometimes fails and people sometimes leave requires courage you may not even realize you've already shown. You didn't go cold. You didn't shut down completely. Something in you still wants connection. Something in you still yearns for belonging. Something in you still hopes love exists that won't vanish when you exhale. That longing is not weakness. It's evidence. Evidence that you were made for more than the cycle of almost. Evidence that your soul knows a deeper truth than your history taught you. Evidence that God has been guarding something tender in you that trauma didn't get to finish. If He preserved your ability to feel, He didn't do it so you could keep bleeding quietly while calling it normal. He preserved you because there is something ahead. So this is not the part of the story where everything is magically restored. This is the part where you stop assuming restoration is impossible. This is where you let yourself imagine the possibility that your life could become more whole than it has been. This is where you begin, slowly, gently, cautiously, if necessary, to lift your head and consider that God has not been letting you drift through darkness for decoration. He has preserved you because purpose still exists on the other side of your patterns. If He truly goes before you, then forward is not reckless. It is the first honest direction. Thanks for spending these minutes with me. Breaking a cycle rarely happens in one dramatic moment. It happens in small, steady breakthroughs, one step at a time. If something in today's reading stayed with you, leave a comment and tell me what landed. And if you want to keep walking with me, subscribe so you don't lose the thread. I'll see you in the next episode.